We're continuing our coverage this morning of Bay Area immigrant communities struggling to feel safe following a flurry of executive orders and policies from the Trump administration. It started on Inauguration Day when the president declared a national emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border and pushed for an end to birthright citizenship. All of this coming after historic numbers of undocumented people crossed the border under the last administration. Border Patrol making nearly 250,000 arrests back in December. KRON4 sat down with community members concerned about Trump's approach. Let's listen to some of that.
En 27 años que yo tengo viviendo aquí.
I've been here 26 years, but this is the first time that I feel that, the extreme panic and not wanting to leave my house.
La otra cosa que a mí me impacta es que yo voy seguido a la iglesia.
And I go to church a lot, so now with the new supposed changes that the raids can happen in churches, I'm fearful. I don't know, should I go or should I not go? I go there earlier and then my son goes later, but right now we've decided that we're going to go together.
They contribute to our society, and maybe not enough people understand that.
Right now we're very concerned about just a massive organized structural displacement that's based purely in a racist agenda, and we're very concerned about that.
When you target immigrants, the illegal aliens, whatever the wording that they want to use now, when you're targeting them, it's not just that one individual that's going to be impacted by your policies, by your practices, by your mass deportations. It's going to affect a whole entire village.
And joining me live now in the KRON4 studio this morning is immigration attorney Gabriel Espinoza Ramos. He's based in San Francisco with the Espinoza Ramos law firm. Gabriel, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you so much for joining us. So we are dealing with a lot of information. It's ever evolving, coming out of Washington, D.C., from the White House on a daily basis with regards to this immigration topic. Things like, birthright citizenship, the federal troops being sent to the border, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement being deployed to different cities. So to start us off here, can you walk us through the basic rights that every immigrant has, and we can start with perhaps the ones who are undocumented and those who did come through with the proper documentation?
Definitely. So every person inhabiting the U.S. has Miranda rights, the right to remain silent, the right to an attorney, albeit undocumented immigrants have slightly watered down versions of these rights. Nonetheless, undocumented immigrants have the right to remain silent when confronted with ICE, have the right to assert that and to seek counsel and not sign anything. Basically self-incrimination, even though being undocumented is a civil offense, but it applies in the same manner as it would with the Constitution. So that's the general gist of that. Documented immigrants, citizens, of course, have the full extent of that right. So generally, rights against, when you're speaking with a police officer, your rights to assert silence and seek an attorney.
And Gabriel, have you seen an uptick in folks coming to you to ask for support through this time that's quite tumultuous for many? Most
definitely. There's a fear going on right now where people are afraid to go out, that there's a fear that they'll be pretextually stopped for anything. What do I do if confronted with ICE? What can I do to try to prevent it? How do I prepare? So I always redirect my clients to asserting these rights, and a great resource that I give them, which is available online, is the Know Your Rights card. It's in various different languages and in English. Essentially, that delineates all of the points I just mentioned, but it's so important that people assert that right themselves versus just showing the card to an officer. So I would say being proactive, consulting an attorney before to see what rights you may have if confronted with that, seeking out possible benefits and just being prepared on how to react.
All right. Now, leaders across the Bay Area have recently come out in support of the immigrant community as well. Let's hear a little bit of that.
You have birthright citizens in your state. Item number one, they're deserving of protection of their constitutional right.
In San Francisco, we value our immigrant communities.
Whatever Trump says or threatens, we are a sanctuary city, we are a sanctuary state, and we are here to support and protect our undocumented and refugee community.
Now, we heard that phrase, sanctuary city, being repeated a number of times there. I did ask Supervisor Raphael Mandelman about this in our earlier interview. So how should people interpret that?
So I'll reiterate the point made earlier. There's a supremacy clause within the Constitution that asserts that ICE functions, immigration enforcement, that is a federal function versus law enforcement, local law enforcement is a state function. So there is that separation, the supremacy clause that applies where the states are not obligated to essentially do the federal government's job. However, the states do not have the right to interfere, but doesn't mean they have, they have to use their resources to assist with these types of encounters.
Now, millions of undocumented immigrants we know were deported under both the Obama and Biden administration. So what's different in this case?
I would say there's definitely an effort to expedite removal for those who have been in the country for less than 2 years and who do not have an active immigration benefit petition, whether it be within the immigration court, which is defensive removal proceedings, or within USCIS.
Okay. And we know that there is quite a bit of pushback locally when it comes to Trump's immigration policies. Can you give us some context here? What leads a person to come to the United States undocumented?
In many cases, clients that I work with, asylum, there's a violence within their home country, very poor condition, very bad condition, living conditions, but I would say mostly bad living conditions and half the time violence. And there are legal benefits for different types of situations that people face in their home countries and even here that people should be aware of. And I always encourage my clients and just the general immigrant community to avail themselves of legal knowledge to see what legal benefits they might be able to qualify for in terms of getting legal status.
And in our last 30 seconds here, what should people do if ICE shows up at their home or in a public setting?
Sure. I would say the most common one right now would be in a public setting. Remain calm. Do not, be finicky. Just cooperate, but do not volunteer information. Ask the officer if you are free to leave or you're being detained. And most definitely, what I just mentioned earlier, assert your right to remain silent, to seek the counsel of attorney. Do not sign anything. I would say if encountered, with ICE, and if you're encountering ICE at home, determine whether there's an actual warrant, because what I'm seeing is that there are warrants signed by ICE officials, which are not actually warrants that give them the right to search a person's home. So perhaps asking the official, could you place the warrant under the door, confirm that it's actually signed by a judge. That would give the parameters to search your home, and it would actually delineate the extent of it. So it's really important to be aware of that, and I would say remain calm is the key here with that, I would say.
All right, San Francisco immigration attorney Gabriel Espinoza Ramos, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll be right back.